Hi, this is Peggy from Roar. So today I'm joined by Paul Allard. Paul is the CEO and co-founder of Impak Finance. So Impact is a leading impact rating agency that provides impact qualification, scoring, and tracking for investors. So thank you so much, Paul, for being with us today and
It's a
sharing your
pleasure.
thoughts. Now, that's great to have you. Okay, let's get started with the first question. So from your perspective, what is one of the many lasting impacts that COVID will have on the financial services industry?
Well, actually, the crisis simply accelerated a process that was in due course. And this process is today financial decision makers, when you buy, when you invest, or when you lend money, you need not only to look at the financial performance, but also at the social and environmental impact that these organizations has to manage the risk and the opportunities. And this acceleration of this major mindset switch and transformation is happening due to the crisis.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the positive aspects we can see from the crisis, this acceleration of recognizing that we really need to be more active. So from
Correct.
a regulation and policy perspective, whether on that topic specifically or on another topic, do you see new regulation policy coming up from COVID?
From the regulation aspect of COVID, that's what the question?
Yeah, in terms of regulations, do you see new regulations coming up? So, for example, what we've seen very often is the fact that in Canada, it was very difficult to open a bank account if you were not in person showing your ID. So that the type of regulations that might be changing to make digital easier. Back to what you were saying in terms of impact, do you see some of the regulations that we might see in Europe
Yeah.
coming to Canada or North America?
Yes, correct. Well, currently in Europe, they're leading the path. The regulators are currently putting in place a more severe or higher standards in extra financial reporting for issuers and also for asset managers. And that is currently happening in the European space. And what we've seen during COVID, that's interesting, we've seen the SEC move fast and put up a commission to come and regulate what we call the extra financial reporting system to avoid the greenwashing and impact washing. So to higher the standards. So this is good news for us as an impact rating agency, because it will become one day mandatory to not only publish our financial statements, but to publish our impact statements regarding the social and environmental impacts a corporation has. And this will come in a few years, and in Europe, probably before the North America. United States is following fast, and Canada, as usual, is lagging in that sector.
Okay. Well, I guess for you who's really active in Europe, you can focus on Europe and then you move to North America. It's unfortunate Canada is always lagging behind because it's so important for everyone, whether you live in Canada or the US, you need to know that. So anyway, so what impacts do you see COVID having on the global financial stability order?
Well, again, it's not, COVID simply is an acceleration factor. Before the COVID, we had people well known in Canada as Mark Carney, who was saying each time he did a speech, he says, today, any corporation or banker or financial professional needs to take into account the social and environmental risks related to their to their investments, and if they don't, they will pay for it. And that is, again, one of the major aspects of it today. Post-COVID, we understand, and bankers, which are also not necessarily the most innovators in any markets, today understands that the risk related to another crisis due to environmental or social that are interconnected, let's face it, everything is interconnected, will come soon. And the corporations and the companies that do integrate these issues within their model and business model will be less risky than those that absolutely don't care about social or environmental aspects. So that's the risk factor related to impacts needs to be better defined, and to do so you need to have better data, qualitative and quantitative data on standardized universal transparent methodology for everybody able to compare apples to apples. So this is the major shift, is that we will see appear, and that's what us at Impak are working on, is we will see appear a universal, standardized, transparent way to report the impact statement of any issuers.
That's great. And you need that global perspective, because to your point, it shouldn't be just a couple of countries, but assessed on a certain type of set, and you have no idea what's going on. So in terms of resetting competitive positioning, what type of financial organization and which organization maybe you think will benefit from the crisis? Obviously, Impak is a clear winner, but what else do you see?
I think that those that will position themselves favorably in the future are those financial institutions that gets involved in the way they can promote and ask their clients or their participations, their investees, the issuers, to move and to integrate and to be aware. So to be a certain level of activism towards the impact and the level of reporting or of transformation of their models. So this again is major, and we all think that it's just on the margin, but it is not on the margin. It will become mainstream, and the most important aspects of risk management, to understand how a corporation or a client, if I'm a bank, a lender or investment manager, I need to understand the issuer. So the activism of these organizations, putting impact in front, and keep in mind that impact is correlated with better financial returns. It's a misunderstanding to think that when you look at the impact aspects, you need to jeopardize on the financial return. It's the other way around. And COVID demonstrated that the most resilient companies are those that incorporate in their model issues related to social and environmental, because this is a huge opportunity. It's the opportunity of post-2020, let's face it. And as BlackRock, as the ex-CEO of Unilever, Paul Polman said, the best business plan today is to look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals published by the UN.
Which is, I guess, the goals you're using for your own methodology.
Correct, which are incorporated. It's the common language, correct.
Okay. And one of the things as well, if you look at the transfer of wealth, a lot of this transfer is going to younger generations and to women who are themselves extremely sensitive to this type of issues. So it's good business on top of great insights for the future.
Correct. And this is a point, when I say COVID didn't change anything, it simply was a catalyst to accelerate the transformation. The millennials will inherit of a huge amount of money, has been asking to the financial sector to give them more transparency on where the money goes and what are the impact of these investments or these money flow towards social and environmental issues. And now with the COVID, this is more of in the forefront, and there's no reason for not doing it, because the solutions and the standards and the rigorous impact statements to be provided by corporation, all of this exists. So there's absolutely no excuse. to not do it and not to go forward with that.
So you work with a lot of financial institutions, obviously they're your clients. So how do you see these institutions transform in the future? And obviously what is the link with what you're doing?
Well, the role of a financial institution, first and foremost, needs to change and needs to not look at in silos, but in a continuous flow of services surrounding companies' needs regarding cash flows and investments or lends and related to also consumption. I think that's one of the approach that I would definitely push if I was a banker myself. I'd say, let's stop thinking in silos. I have insurance. I have no. It's the same money management and money flow that comes from consumers, comes from lending, from investment, from equity crowdfunding. There's so many things that needs to be happening around a corporation, if it's your clients, or a user, if it's your retail. But coming back to my domain, for sure, every banker, every financial institution, money manager, asset manager, VCs, or family offices that manage capital, they understand the most, they're more and more understanding the urgency of integrating these type of data, these impact data, for them to better not only manage the risks, but also to identify undervalued assets that do incorporate impact in their business model, and that will be the new most successful companies in the future. So today, in order to make the right choices, you need to have the accurate and the qualitative data that is comparable from one region to the other and from one sector to the other. Exactly.
That's great. Thank you so much. So one last question, more personal. So in terms of your own transformation, what did these 3 months of lockdown change in your life? Are you working out every day, or on the contrary, are you working 18 hours a day and barely eating?
Well, it's interesting. We understand that I've been traveling way less. I stopped traveling, which was pressure on health and people, since they were all on the same wagon, they stopped traveling also, and they accepted to do business by Zoom distance. So the efficiency, to be honest with you, is pretty interesting in terms of doing business. And so that's a first point of view. I don't need to travel as much as I did, and I will stop traveling as much. Yes, it will be needed in some case, because human relationships are about physical relationship, and I think it's needed, but way less than we think. And the second point is that we have a common conscience, and that's the most interesting thing. There's no excuse from today and in the future to not change collectively and put the means to work. We did in a few weeks something that nobody thought it would be possible to do, putting a huge amount of capital towards a risk that we identify as being a risk. And this is exactly what we need to do, considering the climate change, the environmental risks, the social risk related to the climate change, and go on and so forth. And we need to take the same type of decision, and we need to understand that the risk is even way higher, and it won't go away like the COVID that will disappear. The climate change will not go away when it's there. So we need to take the same. So there's no excuse. Bullshit economists saying, yeah, we can't do this, we can't. It's not true. We've seen exactly the other way around. Will it be a challenge in terms of recovering? Yes, but there's fantastic things that we now did and that we now can study and see the effect, such as in Canada, this 2,000 per month to everybody that needed it is a debate that has been around for years. to have that minimum guaranteed revenues to show those that needed it. It's a fantastic economic growth potential. That's my thought. So that's what my takeaway is, that there's a few major things. We do not have any excuse not to do the right things in the future. And certainly not the excuse of, yeah, there's an economy that will suffer. Yeah, but if there's a real risk, we need to stop thinking short term. Mm-hmm. Stop thinking short term and think intelligently. Unfortunately, we're not necessarily in the hands of the right elected leaders. If we think of Trump or of Brazil or of India and the Philippines and go on and so forth, they are on the right side of the spectrum. But I do think that there's others in Canada, in France, in Germany that are on the right path. I do think.
Yeah. And again, I believe the new generations are probably a bit more
absolutely,
than maybe our generation, and they bring a lot of changes and hope, I would think, for people like you and I, that things are going for the better. Actually, I think the message at the end of the day is that crisis, to your point, showed that we could collectively engage and move the ball forward in the right direction. So thank you so much. Pardon me, go ahead. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. So thank you so much, Paul, for sharing your thoughts today. It was really a pleasure, and thank you for connecting, the new normal with climate change and the environment. I think that's a topic that doesn't really come up, and I really enjoyed you bringing this point. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Peggy. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.